Welcome back, my friends, to the land of the left behind, titles of a bygone era, or in today's case, an age undreamed of, if you will. Forgotten Fighters is back, baby! And we're going to talk about one of my personal favorite weapon-based fighters and a severely underrated title, Golden Axe the Duel. Once upon a time, Sega used to have several franchises that were either made to be answers to other titles or just something on its own. For you RPG lovers out there, you had the Shining and Phantasy Star series for starters. But fighting games wasn't really something Sega hit home with until Virtua Fighter. Now, it's not to say that Sega never tried another fighting game before Virtua Fighter. It's just they didn't have a whole lot of success with it. In fact, I actually reviewed one of their first outings already a couple years ago called Eternal Champions. And you can actually consider that an honorary episode of Forgotten Fighters because how long has it been since you saw this game around? But in comes a prime fighting game called Samurai Showdown from SNK. Everybody loves it, and Sega wanted to do something like it. Now, it wouldn't be the first time Sega's ever tried their hand at using Golden Axe to mimic a famous franchise. Golden Axe Warrior and Axe Battler are a lot like The Legend of Zelda, and decent games in their own right from what I've heard. I'm just gonna put those games down on my list of games to stream sometime, because I've never played them. Anyways, if you're unfamiliar with Golden Axe, it's a Conan the Barbarian style beat-em-up game series. The original trilogy and the arcade cabinet Revenge of Death Adder are absolute classics and must-plays for fans of beat-em-ups. The lore of Golden Axe is both simple, but admittedly kinda confusing, and to get to the story of the game, we'll have to explain it in a bit. But first, let's talk about the gameplay. Like I mentioned, Golden Axe the Duel is a lot like Samurai Showdown with a focus on quick strikes, pokes, big damage attacks instead of memorizing combos and special moves. Now, it's not to say that there aren't special moves in the game, it's just they're primarily used for setups, field control, zoning, or just quick damage. Now, the real star of the show are your strikes. Reach is important, whereas some characters have great reach but slow attacks, other characters have quick attacks but short reach. The balance is just really well done in this game, and I don't feel like there's that one character that would be superior to play against all others anyway. Well, there is just one character who is a death sentence to play as, but I'll get to him in a minute. Also, the game is fast, like surprisingly fast. I'm impressed at how quick you can move around and how alive this game feels. If you recall, I actually said that Art of Fighting feels really lively. If you remember that episode, then this game has that exact same feel and it works great. Now, unlike Art of Fighting, there are no insane combos to memorize. The game is very simple and straightforward, but the AI is also one of the most aggressive and toughest AIs I've ever fought against in a fighting game. I'm playing the Sega Saturn version, but I imagine that it's hard because, like most of the games from the era, they were from arcade games, and arcade games were made to be hard to take more money from. It's like arcades were insatiable beasts whose hunger for coins could never be sated, always crying out for more, more, more!
Feed me more.
And if I'm being honest, when it comes to the AI, I will say that some characters feel harder than other characters to play against. Guys like Green and Keel gave me a hard time in my playthrough with Kane, whereas characters like Gem and Zoma went down pretty easily. Now, in terms of a person playing these, I don't feel like there's too much of a difference between learning a character and getting really good with a character, so I don't think it's a balance issue, but rather an uneven AI issue. But it could also just be the matchups, characters, or me just sucking against other characters and being completely awesome against others. It's a fighting game, you know? Kind of depends. And I do want to come back to this because, like I said, the control scheme is very Samurai Showdown. Quick strikes do minimal damage, but big strikes are slower, more punishable, have bigger reach, and also hit a lot harder. And of course, you have special moves like fireballs, which are your standard quarter circle forward punch motion. And in my playthrough, I never really found a combo system. Some moves seem to link with others, but it just feels more so the game is built around strong normals, reads, and knowing your matchup. The game doesn't pretend to be flashy or edgy just to get your money. It's just an honest, straightforward, easy to control, Easy to pick up but hard to master fighting game. And in that regard, it excels. And at one point of critique I've seen a lot of this game is the potion system. It's the one thing that sets Golden Axe the Duel apart from just being a reskinned Samurai Showdown game with a couple of unique characters. You see, in the OG Golden Axe games, you get these random moments of gnomes popping out, and they either steal from you or you have to smack them around to drop potions, which you can then use for magic attacks. So, since it's a staple of the franchise, Golden Axe the Duel has random moments where gnomes appear and you can smack them around for a potion or two. Collect 5 potions and then press all 3 of the punch or kick buttons and you enter a super special mode where you can unleash your ultimate attack. Awesome. Completely awesome. And some point of contention was that this is way too complicated to have to focus on gnomes and your opponent. But allow me to play defense for this system for a minute. Sure, I didn't use them a whole lot in my playthrough, but that's not because I wasn't trying. It's that my inputs for the super special moves weren't tight yet, so I didn't have a lot of confidence trying to bust that move out, missing or failing the input and then getting wasted as a result. You see, that's not really an issue with the game's system, that's an issue with me, the player, not being good enough at the game to be able to easily do those sorts of moves. That's not the game's fault. That's my fault. But in every single solitary round, you always have the possibility of getting 5 potions. You can play it fast, so you don't have to worry about the potion system, but if you play it slowly and more methodically, the gnomes fly out all the time, sometimes even 2 at a time, and drop potions everywhere. And on top of that, sometimes you don't even have to try and hit them, because you'll be in the right spot, at the right time, in the middle of swinging your sword, a gnome pops out, gets in the way, and gives you a potion. So it's not like getting potions is difficult, it's actually absurdly easy. In fact, I'd say that this is probably one of, if not the, most generous meter building system I've ever seen in a fighting game. It lets you keep your potions from round to round as well, so you can always pick and choose your moments when you can use them. And also, mashing a couple of buttons to give yourself a magic power boost that allows you a limited amount of time to bust out your super special move is not a bad idea, because we've seen that work as well in the 2019 Samurai Showdown prequel that came out. Like, sure, I feel like Samurai Showdown system does it a lot better than Golden Axe the Duel, but hey, it's still a great system to have and can be extremely useful. You know, if you really think about it, that kind of makes Golden Axe the Duel a bit of a trendsetter, albeit way ahead of its time. I mean, just think about this now. I'm comparing 2 systems from 2 similar games, one that was made in 1995 to one that was made in 2019. The fact that I'm doing that alone should tell you that somebody at Sega was onto something here. Regardless of whether or not it's as good as more modern games, I think it's a totally unique system that really stood out for the time, and the super moves all look really cool too. Difficulty aside, I bet if Golden Axe the Duel had taken off as a spin-off series, they would have refined the system in future games, and it only would have gotten better the more they played around with it. And now on to the visuals. As you can see, this game is beautiful looking. Everything from the character models, the backgrounds, the art style, it all meshes really well together. Like, no, seriously, it's like if Conan the Barbarian was an anime that got a fighting game. And if you know me, I love my Conan. I love my anime. So this tickles me in all the right spots. Golden Axe the Duel's aesthetics make me go... Oh, the music's pretty good too. Just goes to the OST if you could find it online. It's good. It's good. Much praise to the sound people, guys, composers, them. Good job. Thank you for this. Now getting back to the gameplay for a second, like I said, this game is hard. Even when guys like Keel and Green were humbling me round after round, there is a benefit though. I never really found myself getting too frustrated and having the desire to quit. Like, I wanted to keep going. I wanted to keep playing because I was having such a good time with such a great game. It's a rare quality in a game that can be both punishingly difficult but still retain that level of cool and funness that makes me want to continue playing regardless of how badly I'm losing. I mean, just think about this for a second now, okay? I adore the Fatal Fury series, but I tapped out on Fatal Fury 2 and Fatal Fury Special, but Golden Axe the Duel, I kept going. No matter how many times Green here grabbed me by the face, I was determined to keep going because I was having so much fun with it. So, as you can tell, I'm pretty high up on the visuals, the music, and the gameplay. Yeah, it's all good.
Ah, but what is a fantasy game without a good fantasy story? Is the plot any good?
Yes, actually it is. In fact, I think it's a pretty decent plot for a fighting game. If you're unfamiliar with Golden Axe, let me lay it down for you. The titular Golden Axe is a weapon of mystical power that can imbue its wielder with a variety of special powers and gifts. In the hands of a good person, peace and prosperity will reign. In the hands of an evil person, destruction and doom are inevitable. Now, the game is also a sequel to Golden Axe Revenge of Death Adder, but it's set 80 years after the conclusion of that game. Now, fortunately, you don't really need to do any legwork to catch up on the story, and that's probably for the best because Golden Axe's story is kinda confusing if you ask me. But here's all you need to know. The Golden Axe was sealed away, but now it's back, and all these fighters are questing for it in order to make their dreams come true. Pretty basic stuff, but hey, it works to bring us this colorful cast of characters. So let's talk about them and their motivation. First up is the main character of the game, the one that I used to play through it, and is my boy, Kane Blade, aka Anime Conan.
Barbarian, best character in the game by a long shot, and you should all go play as him immediately.
His goal, as you would expect, is to acquire the Golden Axe, use its powers to bring peace and prosperity to the land. Typical hero good guy stuff, but hey, it's not every day you see a lawful good barbarian. I mean, you'd think with a name like Kane Blade, he'd be a real edgelord or something. Don't tell Reaper, but he's not. He's a good boy. A very good boy. Everyone say thank you, Kane. Thank you for subverting the stereotype that all barbarians are thuggish brutes who have one personality trait. Which is usually...
I feel like an idiot.
Then we have Milan Flare. Milan Flare. Mylan Flare. Charlotte Flare. Descendant of Tyrus Flare from the original games, she's more of an acrobatic fighter than most, leaping around all over the place. She's a princess and defender of her kingdom of... Grayskull! Windwood. Kingdom of Windwood, not Grayskull. Oh wait, she does kind of look like She-Ra now that I think about it. Much like Kane, she just wants to use the axe to bring peace to the land and defend her people from danger. Then we have Gilius Rockhead, descendant of Gilius Thunderhead from the original games. He is... well, he
is the dwarf.
He doesn't want to use the axe himself, but rather just stop Death Adder from getting it and then seal it back up, hoping it never sees the light of day again. And then we have Andy Bogard, who is for some reason in a fantasy sword and sandal game not made by SNK. And I thought it was weird SNK licensed Terry Bogard to that Chinese King of Fighters knockoff King of Combat. Well, actually his name is Doc, but seriously, he looks like Andy Bogard, like style of dress and all. So that's why he's not in Garou Mark of the Wolves. He went back in time, changed his name, became a doctor and a sword master, and was fighting for a mystical golden axe. Doc is a doctor. Duh, it's the name. It'd be weird if he was a, I don't know, shoe salesman. And he wants to get the golden axe to cure all known diseases.
What's up, Doc?
Next up we have Keel, who is this ice bandit guy who's a little on the psycho side and kind of reminds me of Puck from Gargoyles. His village thought him to be a bit too loony, so they sealed him in ice. He broke free once Death Adder returned. His reasons for wanting the golden axe are largely unknown, but in his ending he regains his sanity and decides to live his life with his sister. So basically his entire character is mental illness. Now we come to Jam, who's clearly inspired by Cham Cham from Samurai Showdown. She wants to use the axe to bring her adoptive saber-toothed cat father back. And since she wears yellow, I can do this. Saber-toothed tiger! There was never an animal called a saber-toothed tiger. No, seriously, look it up. How lied to do you feel right now? Next up is Panchos, who uses the world's greatest fighting style, bombs! He's this engineer guy in search of excitement and adventure. In his ending, he transforms the golden axe into a suit of armor and rules over a kingdom, gaining the respect and admiration of everyone in the process. Now we get to Green, aka
cheap mofo with the face grabs. He's a giant plant monster guy who is very obviously inspired visually by Blanca from Street Fighter. Wait, he's big and his name is green. Oh my god, I can do this now!
Ah! It's Big Green!
Let that child alone.
Green's ultimate goal is to use the axe and transform himself into a human so he can be with his love. In his ending, he does so and decides to throw the axe into the ocean, never to be seen again. This brings us to Zoma, who is the worst character in the game. He has a lame moveset that I found to be kind of clunky and a little too complicated compared to everybody else. Now, he's not an awful character in concept, since he's just a wizard dude who uses dark magic to drain souls from people. He's basically Shang Tsung from Mortal Kombat, just more wizardy. He wants to use the golden axe to lay siege to all the land. In his ending, he melts the axe down into a potion of ultimate power. I mean, did you really need to do that? I mean, you already have the golden axe. You already have the ultimate power, and guess what? You don't have to drink molten metal to do it. What's wrong with you? You stupid? You dumb? You big stupid dumb? Dingus Bungus? Also, his design, which is okay at best if you ask me, I think it's one of the weaker designs on the roster. He kind of reminds me of Mephis from Shaq Fu, especially his alternate skin, and wow, I can't believe that a good game such as this gave me a Shaq Fu flashback.
So does that make this game worse, or does that make Shaq Fu better? I'm gonna go with the latter because this game is so good, even association with this game makes your game better.
And finally, we come to the one, the only, Death Adder. Now, this isn't a Descendant either. This is the same Death Adder from the previous games. Dude just does not like staying dead, does he? You see, when Golden Axe returned, so did he. And his never-ending quest for power and destruction never died. Dude's like Castlevania's Dracula with a horn helmet. His need to kill anyone and everything transcends the afterlife itself.
What is a man?
Like, dude, have you thought of getting a hobby? In his ending, he, as you can imagine, dominates the world and spreads a plague of devastation across the land.
Now, Death Adder is playable, and you would think he would be the final boss, considering he's, like, the final boss in most of the other games. But he's not. No. So who's the final boss? It's the Golden Axe itself!
Bum, bum, bum. Dramatic reverb.
After defeating Death Adder, the axe manifests a body for itself, and he's looking a lot like Rao from Fist of the North Star, just with a lot more gold. Huh. Also, he's hard, and he's not like a traditional, he'll just rush you and beat you down hard. It's like a different kind of hard, like a, oh, hey, I figured him out, and he just beats you down, and you're just there like, what? I had him, what, how'd he do that? It's a weird, almost ethereal state of difficulty. It's hard to explain, actually, but if you played against him, you'll probably get what I'm saying. He just somehow manages to get around your otherwise effective strategy that works pretty well, pretty much no matter what you do against him. If I'm being pretty honest, I kinda had to cheese him a bit. You see, if you corner him, you can get him into a grab loop that can drain his health pretty fast, and if you get the timing down, well, it works sometimes, but that's how I got him down. Eventually. If you get the timing down, he does eventually die, and you win the game.
You know, I've actually heard criticisms of this game that say that it's mediocre because it's not very original. Well, I'm going to refute those claims because a game doesn't have to be unique to be good. A game can just be extremely competent at what it's doing to still be a fine game in its own right. So yes, Golden Axe the Duel is an amazing game because it sets out to do exactly what it wants to do.
Not every game has to have this super world-shattering concept that forever changes the landscape and how we look at games in that genre again. Sometimes a humble and fun game that exists just to exist is all you need. As a guy whose first fighting game ever was Samurai Showdown 1, I had an absolute blast playing Golden Axe the Duel. It was like this game came second nature to me. It was fun, and I loved every minute that I spent with it, and I will gladly boot this game up anytime somebody wants to play a fun, classic fighting game. And you know, if we don't criticize the mountains upon mountains of Street Fighter clones out there, then why should Golden Axe the Duel get the shaft? I mean, is Breaker's Revenge any less fun because it looks a lot like Street Fighter 2? Or is Martial Masters any less fluid or energetic because it looks a lot like Street Fighter 3? No, a good game is a good game no matter what it was largely inspired by or is trying to emulate. And if you ask me, Golden Axe the Duel is one of the finest Samurai Showdown style games to ever exist, and if you haven't played it, you definitely should. It's an absolute blast, and I cannot recommend it enough.
This is the only fighting game in the Golden Axe series, and if I'm being completely honest with you, it's probably going to stay that way for time immemorial, because Golden Axe itself as an IP hasn't been touched in a long time, unfortunately. But hey, a great fighting game is still better than no fighting game at all, so I thoroughly recommend that you check out Golden Axe the Duel if you can find some way to get your hands on it. But you know, it does make me think about unoriginal titles, actually. Like, again, we never really do take a dump on too many Street Fighter clones. I mean, also, can you imagine if we began, like, saying every single God of War clone game was just bad just because it clones God of War or something? I mean, it'd be really stupid if one existed and...
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, then why don't you hit that like and little subscribe buttons down there. Check out my Patreon if you want to donate to fund the show, and comment below on what forgotten fighting game you'd like to see me talk about sometime in the future. Also got some older games. I even covered the original Golden Axe a couple years ago, Shaq Fu a couple years ago too. Art of Fighting, I did the whole dang series. I do other things sometimes when I have the energy. I feel like dancing, I don't know how to close out this. I'm gonna hit the stop button on this record because it's awkward now.